where Jaega has done a lot of advocacy, what is the change in the beer industry she's enjoyed seeing? That's a good question.
Oh, for me personally, it's been fantastic to see in the beer industry the change on the question of what is and is not acceptable.
Yeah.
Do you remember even 5-6 years ago?
The pump clips. Are you going to say that?
clips.
Yeah.
Bucks and blondes, that kind of thing.
And even now, there's like a standard across the whole industry. If you see something, all of us go like, ooh.
Yeah.
That's kind of not okay.
Yeah, exactly. We can. Before it was like it was cringed at, but accepted. That's just what happens. Whereas now it's no, that's just not acceptable.
That's not
it
acceptable,
gets called out, not just cringed
Immediately.
at and ignored.
So it's been the whole industry seems to have risen up to say, even within ourselves, calling out other brewers and people sometimes who are your friends.
Yeah.
And you have to say that's not okay, etc., etc. So that's been quite a positive overall shift across the industry. But I think we've done more than that in terms of the change in the Portman Group Code. So in order to make it not only not acceptable socially, but also not acceptable from a legislation kind of standpoint. So if there is a problem, that can be reported to the Portman Group and that beer can be removed from sale. And I think it's important that that's been done across not just beer, it's been done across cider, across wine, across spirits. Yeah. And I think that's important.
No, what they've done there is great, but unfortunately some of that has been interpreted in a way that's been used to benefit macro and disadvantage more minor players.
In what sense?
So we've been pulled up by the Portman Group.
Are you talking about the label for like childish labelling?
Yeah.
Yeah. Yes. So that particular side, it's quite an old section of the Portman Group Code that's quite separate from the section I'm talking about.
Okay.
So
but in terms of that, I understand and I agree. But in terms of the section that I'm talking about was within the Portman Group's code. What was protected was not making a beer look childlike. So that was seen as something really important. But what wasn't protected is sexual advances towards women. Racism wasn't protected. Homophobia wasn't protected. So it would be perfectly possible, impossible for you to have a beer that had like a childlike cartoon on it, yet you can have something sexist, racist, homophobic on there, and you wouldn't get pulled up for that, but you would get pulled up for the childlike cartoon. So I mean,
serious double standard.
Yeah, a serious double standard. So I mean, I'm not going to make much comment on the child because I know that's controversial within the industry.
We've probably said enough on that in the past.
I know it's controversial, but it's also. I think it's important that these things are not just spoken about amongst us as colleagues and friends. This is something that needs to be written down and something that needs to be in the rule book.
Yeah, and the fact that it's not just somebody saying, "I don't think that's appropriate." It's like that's not appropriate. I'm going to actually tell somebody about it, and you're going to have to take that product off. Yeah. Not just that pub itself taking it off. Yeah. So you got cut off a couple of times.
Yeah, I was going to say it was a bit of a strange quirk really, because this stuff happened a long time ago when it comes to most other product categories, and there was already legislation governing that and bodies overseeing that. So a good example would be like kind of anything to do with like washing up liquid or anything like that when we were kids. When you see those adverts kind of retrospectively, they were very sexist. And that was kind of ironed out in between now and then by a regulator.
Under the radar.
It was always the woman in the kitchen doing the washing
exactly.
up.
That was done by a regulator, but alcohol kind of fell outside of those changes that came to all the other products that we eat and drink. The regulators kind of tightened up on them. And alcohol was given a slight pass, I think, is the, because I guess
it's self-governing.
And it's possibly one of the reasons why we were having an offline conversation earlier about we have to encounter, don't get me wrong, we have amazing customers who come and see us and amazing customers come to our bars. We also have dicks, unfortunately, who come to see us who are so outdated and they are so rude and they say really upsetting things to people, to our team, and we have to put on a brave face, smile and serve them. But if they ever personally attack our team, we'd never accept that. But they are still very rude and they're very outdated in their opinions.
Yeah, I suppose for a long time people just said, well, it's just beer, isn't it? Or they said, well, that's just the way the hospitality industry is. That's kind of where we've been.
So long.
And I'd also definitely say that I think the most positive thing out of the whole experience that I have viewed is big shout out to all the trad beer companies who had historic labels and changed them to something new and good. Like, fair play to all them guys. They could have been really, you know what I mean? They've chosen a more positive, progressive approach.
For 20 years.
Really cool.
Why should we change? Well, because...
And I guess I'd witnessed that change come about, and I'm kind of in the bubble.
Yeah.
But you make a good point, because that was really quick change. It was like that for so long.
Yeah.
And then it wasn't overnight, but in maybe a 1 to 2 year period,
Yeah.
the vast majority of that went.
Yeah.
That wasn't easy. Though. It was a lot of work. It was a lot of work going on behind the scenes. A lot of work with the trade body. A lot of work with camera. Like, there was a lot of work going on behind the scenes.
And good work from I'm sure yourself and a lot of other people had a lot of input into that.
Yeah, lots of people. Yeah.
It's really good to hear that that people are still fighting hard to improve our industry and improve what the customers experience in the bars.